My name is Father Charlie Bouchard, and I'm here to offer you a word of hope on the readings for Thursday of the 5th week of Lent. Today we get this reading from the book of Genesis about Abram at the point at which God changes his name to Abraham. And I'm always struck when I read these readings about Abraham how common the theme of fertility is. For instance, in this reading today, God says to Abraham, "I will make you exceedingly fertile. I will make nations of you. Kings shall stem from you," and so on. Making fertility, in this case, the ability to propagate, to have children, and to populate the world, becomes a sign of God's promise and a sign of the covenant that God has made with us. And I have realized, especially as I've gotten older, that I have reflected a lot on my own fertility. Not in the sense of having children, because as a priest and a Dominican, I clearly don't have any and don't plan to have any, but rather fertility in the broad sense. And I think that many of us, as we grow older, begin to ask questions about our own past fertility, as it were. When we retire, when we step away from full-time work, when our first half of our lives is over and we're looking more at the end of our lives, we begin to say, well, what does this all add up to? What did I accomplish in life? God gave me certain gifts. Did I manage to produce something with them? Did I create something of value for other people? Did I find satisfaction myself? These are all questions about the fertility that God raises with Abraham today. And I think that this reading gives us an opportunity to ask ourselves those questions, to ask ourselves what we have learned, what we have done, but especially how have we fulfilled our half of this covenant bargain. God says, "I will make you fertile," but then he says, on your part, you and your descendants after you must keep my covenant throughout the ages. And so we can reflect, spend a lot of time in our old age or middle age or whenever, reflecting on what we have done with the gifts that God has given us. But we must also ask ourselves, what have we done to keep our side of this covenant? How have we been faithful to God? How have we accepted God's gifts with gratitude? How have we put those gifts to use for other people? And I know from my own experience that as we age, sometimes the way we use these gifts change. We might not be getting up and going to work early in the morning every day. We might not have all the responsibilities we used to have, but we can still be fertile in charity. We can still appropriate that gift of fertility that God has given us, that gift of generativity, and share it with other people, perhaps in new or different ways. And when we do that, we are being faithful to the covenant, to our side of the covenant that God has offered us, and we will find that this fertility, this generativity that we have, is in the end our path to eternal life and to life in the presence of God who made us.